This happened a few years ago, early February, when I was still living in Oregon and working this warehouse job that always ran late. It was like 9:30 at night when I finally got off, and my cousin Evan had driven out to pick me up because my car was in the shop. We were trying to get back to his place on the other side of the mountain. The normal way around would have added like 2 hours, and we were both broke, and honestly, we just wanted to be home. Evan had this whole attitude like, dude, it's fine. GPS says it saves 45 minutes. And I was like, yeah, but it's a pass in winter. And he just laughed at me like I was being dramatic. We stopped at this little gas station outside the last town before the road goes up. It was one of those places that has a subway inside and a wall of chains and snow shovels by the front door. I remember I grabbed a Red Bull and a pack of gas station beef jerky because I hadn't eaten since lunch. Evan got those little powdered donuts and made a joke about how I eat like a divorced dad. We were in his Subaru Outback, dark blue, with a roof rack. It wasn't some junk car. That's part of why we felt okay about taking the pass. Like, it's a Subaru, it's basically built for this, you know? Also, and this matters later, I had bought this cheap handheld radio at Walmart a couple months before, like a little CB thing. I didn't even really know how it worked. I just saw it in the automotive aisle and I was like, what if we break down with no service? Evan still made fun of me for buying it. He called it my apocalypse walkie-talkie. So we get on the 2-lane highway that turns into the pass, and for the first maybe 20 minutes, it's just normal winter driving. Cold, a little windy, some snow on the shoulder. We had the heat on full blast, but my feet were still cold. Evan had this early 2010s road trip playlist going, like Flo Rida and Imagine Dragons and stuff, and he was singing on purpose bad to annoy me. Then it started changing fast. The wind picked up hard enough that you could feel the car push a little, and the snow started going sideways. The road got that shiny look it gets when it's not just wet, it's starting to ice. And we didn't see a single plow, no salt truck, nothing. I checked my phone and I had 1 bar, then none. Evan's phone was the same. He acted like it was fine, but I could tell he noticed too because he kept tapping his screen like that would fix it. Around 11:40, we came around this bend and visibility just dropped. Not like kinda bad, like you could barely see the reflectors on the side of the road until you were right on them. The wipers were going as fast as they could and still couldn't keep up. It was that weird thing where inside the car everything feels quiet, like the snow is absorbing sound, but you still hear the wind hitting the doors. Evan slowed down and the car did that little slip thing, like the tires lost grip for half a second. Not a full spin, but enough to make my stomach jump. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe we pull over. And Evan goes, there's a turnout up here. We'll wait 10 minutes. It'll chill out. That sounded reasonable at the time, because what else are you supposed to do? Keep driving blind on an icy mountain road? I know people are going to say we should have turned around right then, but turning around on a narrow pass in a storm is not simple. There's no big parking lot. It's just drop-off and trees and a tiny shoulder. So when we saw a little pull-off area, like a gravel turnout, Evan eased in. He put it in park, turned on the hazards, and we just sat there. The snow got worse, not better. Within minutes, it felt like the car was getting buried. The headlights were lighting up this solid wall of snow and you couldn't see past it. The wind would gust and shake the whole Subaru. Evan kept checking the time and doing that thing where he tries to act calm, but he talks more than normal. My phone said no service. I tried anyway. Nothing. I tried texting my mom, just stuck on pass, might be late, and it didn't go through. Evan tried calling his girlfriend and got nothing. And then we had that other problem you don't think about until you're in it. The car was on, so we could run the heat, but the battery indicator on the dash, well, not the battery, but you know what I mean, the fuel and all that. Evan starts doing the math out loud. We're at like a quarter tank, he said. We can idle for a while, but not forever. I'm just sitting there with my Red Bull in my lap, trying not to panic, and I remember thinking, this is so stupid, like we did this to ourselves. That's when Evan goes, wait, didn't you buy that radio thing? And I was like, yeah, but it's just a cheap Walmart one. He dug in the glove box and found it. It was one of those little handheld CB radios. I think the brand was Cobra, but I don't even know. It had a little antenna and a tiny screen and a knob that felt like it would snap off if you looked at it wrong. Evan turns it on and it does that little static sound. He's messing with it like he knows what he's doing, even though he didn't. "Try channel 9, he said. "That's the emergency one, right?" I honestly didn't even know if that was true. I had just heard that somewhere, like some movie or something. But at the time, it felt better than sitting there with no plan. So I took it from him and turned the knob until it said 9. The static got a little clearer, like it was actually picking up something. I pressed the button and said, "Hello? Anybody on channel 9? We're stuck on the pass. We pulled into a turnout. We don't have service." I let go and waited. At first, nothing, just static. Then this voice came through, and the only way I can explain it is it sounded like someone trying to sound official, like they were copying what they think a dispatcher talks like. It was a man, I think. Calm. Too calm. He said, "Vehicle on the pass, I hear you. Remain where you are. Help is available." Evan looks at me like, "See?" And he goes, "Told you." And I know, you're thinking, why didn't we just call 911 anyway? The truth is we tried. We had no service. And also, I didn't want to waste emergency resources if this was just like a road service channel and we were fine. That sounds dumb now, but when you're sitting in a warm-ish car, you talk yourself into thinking it's not that serious yet. So I said into the radio, "Are you like state police or road service?" There was this pause, not a normal pause, like someone thinking. It felt like waiting, like he was listening to something else first. Then he goes, "Road assistance. How many in the vehicle?" I told him 2, me and my cousin. Another pause. "Are you injured?" "No." "Good," he said. "Keep the vehicle running intermittently to preserve fuel. Turn your hazards off. You'll drain your battery." That one hit me weird because, yeah, hazards do use battery, but also telling a stranded car in a storm to turn off hazards felt off, like the whole point is to be seen. Evan, of course, goes, "That makes sense," and reaches toward the hazard button. I put my hand on his wrist and said, "Wait, just wait." Evan rolls his eyes like I'm being paranoid, but he stopped. I pressed the radio again. "Can you tell us where you are? Like, are you a truck?" "I'm already on my way," the voice said. "Stay inside the vehicle. Do not call anyone else." I kind of laughed, like a nervous laugh. "We can't call anyone. We don't have service." "I said don't call anyone," he repeated, and his tone didn't change at all. Still calm, still fake official. Evan's face changed a little at that. He stopped smirking. He mouthed to me, "What the hell?" I asked, "What's your name?" Another pause. "You can call me Mark," he said, but it didn't sound like a real answer. It sounded like the first name he grabbed. Evan leans over and whispers, "Maybe it's just some road worker, like ODOT or whatever." And that's the thing. We wanted it to be that. We wanted a normal explanation, because the alternative is admitting you're stuck on a mountain with some random person talking to you through a radio. So I tried to keep it normal. I said, "Okay, Mark, do you have an ETA? We're in a turnout. I don't know the mile marker." The voice comes back immediately this time, no pause at all. "You're in the dark wagon with the roof rack. Your left tail light is out." I swear my whole body went cold, like the heat was still blasting, but my skin went cold. Evan just stared at me. Then he turned his head slowly and looked out the back window like he could see anything, but it was a white blur back there. "How would he even know that?" Evan said, not into the radio, just out loud, like he forgot the guy couldn't hear him unless we pressed the button. My hands started shaking so bad the radio was rattling. I pressed the button again and I tried to sound calm, but my voice came out tight. "How do you know what car we're in?" The voice said, "I can see you. Stop flashing your brights." We hadn't even noticed we were doing that, but Evan had been tapping the high beams on and off earlier trying to see through the snow, like you do when you're frustrated, and he had done it again when we first got into the turnout. Evan's mouth opened and closed and nothing came out. Because that meant one thing. Whoever this was, they were close. Close enough to see our car through the storm. Evan whispered, Okay, maybe there's just a truck behind us. Maybe he's just..." I cut him off. "Then why tell us not to call anyone?" I pressed the radio. "If you can see us, what vehicle are you in?" The voice didn't answer the question. He said, "Crack your window so I can hear you better. The wind is loud." My stomach dropped, because that's not how a normal rescue would work. If he was close enough to talk to us, he was close enough to walk up. And if he was far away, cracking the window wouldn't do anything except let freezing air in and make it easier for someone to reach inside. Evan shook his head a little, like he was trying to reset his brain. Maybe it's just bad reception? But his voice sounded thin, like he didn't believe himself. I didn't press the button this time. I just looked at Evan and whispered, "Don't open anything." Another burst of static, and then the voice again, like he was annoyed but still trying to sound calm. "If someone knocks, don't be scared, that's me." My throat locked up, like I couldn't swallow. Evan whispered, "Don't move, don't even move." And right after he said that, we saw it. At first, it was just a glow, like two weak headlights through the snow off to the side. Not on the road behind us where you'd expect, more like angled, like a vehicle had pulled in somewhere, but not into the turnout with us, maybe down a little where we couldn't fully see because of the trees. The weird part was, we didn't hear an engine. I know the storm was loud, but you can usually hear tires on snow, or at least the low rumble of a truck. This was just light appearing and sitting there. Evan slowly reached and turned the music off. The sudden quiet inside the car made my ears ring. All you could hear was wind and the wipers and our breathing. My hands were sweating inside my sleeves, but my fingers were numb at the same time. That hot, cold feeling like you're about to throw up. The radio crackled again. "Turn your interior light off," the voice said. Evan and I both froze and looked up at the dome light area even though it wasn't on. But the fact he said that, like he was watching us, watching inside the car. Evan whispered, "How the hell would he..." And then there was a knock. Not a hard knock like a cop or a tow truck. Not the kind of knock where someone is trying to be heard over the wind. It was soft, like knuckles on glass, almost gentle. Two little taps on the driver's side window. Evan's eyes went huge. He didn't even breathe. The voice came through the radio again, quieter, almost like he was right outside. "Don't call anyone. I'm already on my way to you." I don't know why that line messed me up the most, but it did. Because it was like he was giving us permission, like he thought he was in charge of what we did. Evan reached down and locked the doors, even though they were already locked. I heard the little click. Then he checked it again, like 3 times, just hitting the lock button over and over. I grabbed the radio and I turned it off. I know that sounds stupid, like why cut off the only help? But at that point, I didn't want him hearing anything we said. And also, I didn't want to hear his voice anymore. It made my skin crawl. Evan whispered, "Call 911. I held up my phone, like, with what service? He snatched his phone and started trying anyway, just dialing and redialing. It kept failing. Then, weirdly enough, his phone got 1 bar for like half a second, like that fake hope moment. He hit call. It rang once, then dropped. He did it again. Ring, drop. The soft knocking came again, this time on the back window, like the person moved along the side of the car. Evan mouthed, "Oh my God." I was trying to look without being obvious, like keeping my head still but moving my eyes. All I could see was snow and the vague shape of trees. The headlights off to the side were still there, just sitting. Then I saw something pass through our headlights for a split second. A shape. A person, I think. Close enough that the headlights caught them, but the snow made it blurry. And what scared me was how casual they moved. Not like someone rushing to help, more like taking their time. Evan whispered, "If he breaks the window, just go. Just climb over me and go." "Where?" I whispered back, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Because we couldn't just run into the woods. We weren't dressed for it. I had a hoodie and a work jacket. Evan had a beanie and one of those thin North Face jackets that looks warm but isn't. And it was pitch black outside, besides our headlights. We would get lost in 10 seconds, or fall, or freeze. So yeah, I know people will say, just drive. But driving was also terrifying. We couldn't see the road. We didn't know if we'd slide right off the edge. Evan tried 911 again. This time it connected, and I heard, faintly, a woman's voice, like a dispatcher. Evan basically yelled, "We're stuck on the pass. We're in a turnout. Someone is outside our car. We have no idea who it is." The call cut out. Evan slammed his phone down on his lap, and for the first time he looked actually scared. Not annoyed, not joking, scared. And then, like the storm wanted to mess with us too, the car did this little shudder. Not the engine, like something bumped the back bumper, just a nudge. Evan flinched so hard his whole body jerked. I whispered, okay, we're leaving." Evan looked at me like I was insane. "Down the hill? Like right now?" "Either that or we sit here until he decides to do something," I said. "I'd rather crash than—" I didn't even finish the sentence because I didn't want to say it out loud. Evan put it in drive. He turned the wheel carefully to angle us back toward the road. The tires spun for a second and my heart stopped. Then they caught. We rolled out of the turnout and it was like driving into milk. The snow in the headlights was so thick it looked solid. Evan kept it painfully slow, like 5 miles an hour. He put it in the lowest gear he could and just let it creep. We started going downhill, and I kept looking in the side mirror, trying to see if those lights followed. At first, nothing, just white. Then the radio, even though it was off, crackled, just for a second, like interference, like someone keyed a mic nearby. Evan whispered, "Don't look back." Of course, I looked back. I saw headlights behind us now, on the road, following. Not close enough to hit us, but close enough that you could tell they were there on purpose. The weird thing was, they weren't using normal headlights. They looked dimmer, like fog lights only, like they didn't want to be seen from far away. Evan kept whispering, come on," like saying it would make the car grip better. We slid once around a bend, and I actually gasped. The backhand fishtailed, and for a second all I could see out my window was trees. Evan corrected it barely, and we straightened out. I was gripping the door handle so hard my hand hurt. Then, up ahead, through the snow, we saw a different set of lights. Big, high lights, and they were flashing amber. A plow. I have never felt relief like that in my life, like my chest unclenched so fast it almost hurt. Evan started flashing his lights at it like a maniac. The plow came towards us, slowed, and then pulled slightly to the side as it passed, like giving us room. And the second that plow was between us and whatever was behind us, those dim headlights behind us turned off. Just gone.
Not like they backed up with lights on, not like they turned around, just off, like they were never there. Evan and I both started talking at once, like our brains were trying to dump all the panic out of our mouths. We followed the plow down the mountain like it was a lifeline. Evan stayed so close I could see the salt spray hitting our windshield. I didn't care. I would have followed that thing into a ditch if it kept us away from whoever was up there. After maybe 15 minutes, we hit lower elevation and the snow got less insane. We got 1 bar of service again. Evan called 911 and this time it actually stayed connected. He told the dispatcher what happened. She asked where we were, what mile marker, what turnout. Evan didn't know. I didn't know. We were just like, we were up there near the big curve before the drop-off. It sounded stupid even to us. She asked if we saw anyone. Evan said we saw headlights and someone knocked and a voice was on Channel 9. There was this pause, and she goes, "Sir, we do not monitor CB Channel 9. That made my stomach drop all over again. Because then who was it? We drove straight to this little 24-hour diner in the next town, the kind with bad coffee and those little plastic creamer cups. We sat there shaking, trying to warm up even though we were inside. Evan kept saying it was probably just some idiot messing with us, but his face didn't match his words. The next day, Evan called the county sheriff's office just to report it, not because we thought they were going to launch some big investigation, but because what if that person did it to someone else? What if someone actually opened the window? The deputy we talked to was polite, but you could tell he didn't know what to do with it. He basically said, could have been someone with a scanner or a CB, could have been a prank. People do weird stuff. He asked if anything was stolen, if we were hurt. We said no. And that was it. No follow-up, no we found a guy, nothing. Evan sold that Walmart radio like a week later, which is funny because he was the one making fun of me for buying it. Now he won't even keep one in his car. And me? I don't take that pass in winter anymore. I don't care if it adds 2 hours, I don't care if it costs more gas, I will go the long way every time. Because I still think about how calm that voice was, how it didn't sound like a person trying to help. It sounded like someone practicing.
And I still wonder what would have happened if we cracked the window like he said, or if the plow hadn't come when it did. Like if it was just us, stuck in that turnout, with that soft knocking getting closer and closer, and no one else on the road to interrupt it.
This happened a few years ago, on February 1st. Me and my friend Cody were driving back from visiting his aunt because we both had work the next morning. Like real work, not I can show up whenever work. I was on thin ice with my boss already, and Cody was covering an opening shift. So yeah, we were trying to get home that night no matter what. We took my Toyota Corolla because it got better gas than Cody's truck. And at the start of the drive, the weather honestly didn't look that crazy. It was snowing, but it was that normal winter snow where you're like, okay, slow down, don't be dumb. We had the heat on full blast, the defrost going, and we were talking about rent and how everybody's car needs something every single month for no reason. If you've ever driven a Corolla in snow, you already know how it feels when the steering gets all light and you're like, oh, that's not good. It's not even that the car is bad, it's just that you can feel when the tires aren't fully grabbing anymore. It went from snowing a little to straight whiteout in like 20 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating. The headlights felt useless. The wipers were just smearing slush around. The road lines disappeared. It got to the point where I was basically following the faint red glow of the car in front of us, and then that car took an exit, and it was like the entire world went blank. Cody was on his phone trying to Google road closures, but it kept doing that thing where it just loads and loads and nothing pops up, no signal. My phone was at 12% because I'd been scrolling TikTok earlier like an idiot. Cody's was even worse because he'd been using GPS most of the day. We stopped at a gas station right off an exit because my gas light came on, and I wasn't trying to be brave and end up stuck with no gas in a ditch. The station was one of those little ones with a subway inside and a bunch of truck parking. The wind was slapping the side of the building so hard it made the glass shake. We filled up, and I grabbed a gas station coffee, even though I knew it was going to taste like plastic, and Cody bought 2 Slim Jims like that was going to save us somehow. It's just what you do when you're stressed. You buy dumb food. Outside, a couple semi-trucks were pulled off already, just sitting there with their hazard lights on. That should have been my sign to stop right then, but in my head I kept thinking, if we can just make it another hour, we'll be fine. We got back on the road and it got worse. Like the snow was going sideways. I was gripping the wheels so hard my hands hurt, but I was pretending I was calm because I didn't want Cody to freak out. Cody was doing the same thing, acting chill, but he kept going quiet, which is how I know he was nervous. Then we saw this cheap neon vacancy sign, like a little roadside motel off the highway. Not a nice one, not a family vacation one, more like a you stop here because you have to one. Cody was like, dude, let's just get a room. We can leave at sunrise. And I know it sounds dramatic to stop at some sketchy motel, but it felt safer to be inside literally anywhere than to keep driving and end up stuck. People die like that, for real, just sliding off the road and freezing. And we didn't have good phones, we didn't have a signal, and I didn't want to call my mom and be like, hey, we crashed in the snow, because that would have been a whole panic situation. So I pulled in. The parking lot was half covered, like the plows hadn't hit it in hours. The Corolla did that little slide when I turned, and my stomach did that drop thing. We got out, and the cold hit like a punch. Milo, my dog, was in the back seat the whole time. He's this little mixed mutt, not a tough guard dog or anything, but he hates car rides, and he was already on edge. When we opened the doors, he started whining like he wanted to run back inside the car. We basically ran into the lobby. It smelled like cleaner and stale heat, like someone mopped earlier and then turned the heater up too high. There was salt-stained floor mats by the door, and this vending machine in the corner humming loud enough that it was kind of annoying. The lights were bright, but the place still felt off. Not haunted off, just run down and empty. There was a front desk with a bell, and behind it was one guy, like mid-50s maybe, gray hair, clean shave, red cheeks like he'd been in the cold. He didn't look scary, that's what's weird. He looked like somebody's uncle. He was just standing there like he'd been waiting. He smiled and said, "Rough night?" Cody laughed like, "Yeah, it's bad out there." The clerk nodded like it was nothing and went, "You're gonna want to stay put. It'll get worse." He said it like a fact, like he knew. And at the time, I told myself, okay, he works here, he's probably been watching the weather. We asked for a room for one night. He didn't ask for a card right away. He asked for our names first. That part wasn't weird by itself. Plenty of places do that. But then he pulled out this old school logbook, like a literal binder with lined paper, and he opened it on the counter. Pen and paper, not a computer system. That alone made me feel a tiny bit better because I'm like, okay, this is just a basic place. He slid it over with a pen and told me to sign. I wrote my name and then Cody wrote his. I remember my handwriting looked shaky because my hands were still cold. And when I slid it back, I saw the page under the one we signed. It had headings like tonight, and then a line, and then another section that said tomorrow. And under tomorrow, our names were already written there. My name spelled right. Cody's name spelled right. Not like Cody with a K or something, like exactly. And it wasn't in my handwriting. It was in a different pen, darker ink, and the letters were neater. I stared at it for a second too long because the clerk kind of raised his eyebrows like, problem? At first, I honestly thought it was some dumb mistake, like maybe there were other people with our names coming tomorrow, or maybe it was some weird corporate reservation thing and the log was just for show. But then my brain caught up and I was like, there is no way this place has some organized booking system. The Wi-Fi sign in the window was literally handwritten and taped up crooked. I tapped the paper and went, why is that there? Cody leaned in and saw it too, and he did this little laugh like he didn't want to react. He goes, maybe you have one of those faces. The clerk didn't laugh. He just smiled a little wider, like it was a joke he'd heard before. And then he said, super casual, like he was talking about the weather, "Don't worry, people usually show up right when I write them down." I remember my mouth went dry, like I couldn't swallow right. Because who says that? I did that thing where you're trying to be normal, because you don't want to be the weird person making a scene in a lobby at like 10:30 at night. And we were tired and cold and honestly kind of scared of the storm more than anything. So I was like, okay, yeah, weird. The clerk flipped the page like it didn't matter, wrote our room number on a key sleeve and slid the key across. The key was one of those old ones, not a card, a real metal key. He told us the room was around the side, first floor, and then he added again, seriously, don't go back out, it gets bad out there. Which again, sounds normal, right? Like he's being helpful. But the way he said it felt like he was not suggesting, it felt like he was deciding. We walked out and Cody was like, that was creepy. I said, it's probably nothing. He probably wrote it after we walked in, like as a joke. But the problem with that was we didn't walk in and stand around. We came straight to the desk. There wasn't time for him to sneak write our names. Unless he had been watching us pull in and wrote it before we even opened the lobby door. And even if he did, why? The wind outside was so loud it made it hard to talk. Snow was blowing under the lights and the whole parking lot looked empty and fake. Milo was pressed against my leg the whole walk to the room, like he didn't want to be out there. He kept looking back toward the office. We got into the room and it was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, scratchy bedspread, a little TV bolted to the dresser, and a tiny bathroom with that harsh light. It smelled like bleach and old cigarettes, even though there was a no smoking sign. I locked the door and then I locked it again, like that would help. There was a deadbolt and one of those chain locks. I did both. Cody set his bag down and goes, dude, do you think he looked at your ID when you pulled it out? I hadn't even given him my ID yet. That's another thing. The guy didn't ask. He just took cash from Cody like he didn't care. I pulled my phone out and checked my email right away. No reservation, no booking confirmation, nothing. I checked my bank app, nothing pending, no charges. I asked Cody, did you book this ahead of time, like as a prank? He looked genuinely offended, like I'd accused him of something serious. No, why would I do that? And Cody isn't a prank person anyway. He's the guy that complains when other people waste time. We tried to laugh it off, because what else do? You're in a motel in a blizzard. You can't just sit there in silence thinking about a guest log. We ate the Slim Jims, and I took 2 sips of the coffee and threw it away because it was nasty. Cody hooked his Switch up to the TV, and we played Mario Kart, because that's what we do when we're trying not to think. But even while we were playing, Milo kept doing this low, quiet growl at the door. Not full barking, just that something's not right noise. I kept telling myself he was just stressed from the car ride. Around midnight, Cody fell asleep sitting up against the headboard. I was still awake because my brain wouldn't shut off. I kept seeing our names on that page. I know I should have just left right then. I know people are going to say, why didn't you go to a different hotel? There wasn't one. This was the only thing on that exit. And driving in that storm at night with no signal, with semi-trucks pulled over, it would have been stupid. Like heroic in a movie, stupid in real life. So we stayed. Sometime after 2 a.m., I heard footsteps outside. Not fast, not like someone running, just steps on that icy sidewalk coming down the line of rooms. They stopped right outside our door. My heart started pounding so hard it felt annoying, like it was doing too much. I held my breath without even thinking. Milo lifted his head and went stiff. I stared at the door like I could see through it. Then the doorknob did the tiniest jiggle, not yanking, just that little test, like someone's checking if it's latched. My stomach dropped. My hands started shaking and I was trying to hide it, even though Cody was asleep and couldn't see me. I leaned over and shook Cody's shoulder, barely touching him, and whispered his name. He woke up all confused, and I put my finger to my lips. The footsteps were still right there. And then there was a knock. Not like a normal knock. It was too hard for that time of night. Bang, bang, bang. Milo started barking, like full panic barking, throwing himself toward the door.
Cody's eyes went wide. He mouthed, "What the?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth felt stuck. A voice came through the door, calm, like a person trying to sound polite. "Hey, it's the front desk." I didn't move. He knocked again, not as loud, like he was being patient on purpose. "Just checking in on you guys." Cody grabbed his phone and looked at it. No signal, of course. He opened the message screen anyway and typed, "Do not answer." I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. It felt like if I made any sound, the guy would know exactly where we were standing. The voice went, "You can just crack it. I need to talk to you." And this is where people are going to say, "Why didn't you call 911?
1. No signal. 2. Even if it went through, what do you say? A guy knocked on my motel door? They tell you to lock it and stop wasting their time. And I know that because I've called the cops before for an actual break-in at my apartment, and they still took forever. Cody quietly slid off the bed and dragged the chair from the little table over to the door. It scraped the floor just a little, and I cringed because it sounded loud. The guy on the other side went quiet, like he was listening. I remember how loud the silence got after that. The vending machine hum from earlier was gone. No TV, no cars, just wind and my dog panting. Then the voice said, softer now, "Don't make it a thing." That's when I got that weird hot-cold feeling, like my body couldn't pick a temperature, because that didn't sound like a clerk anymore. That sounded like a person who was annoyed. Cody texted me even though we were 5 feet apart. He typed, "If he opens it, we fight." I typed back, "Do not open it." We stood there for what felt like forever, staring at the deadbolt like it was the only thing in the world keeping us alive. The doorknob jiggled again, harder this time, not enough to break it, but enough that the whole door moved in the frame. Milo was snarling, like actual teeth out, which I've seen maybe once in his life. Cody whispered, "Should we yell?" And I thought about it, but then I pictured the guy stepping back and then saying we were being crazy, and then calling someone else, and then we're the problem. And I know that sounds stupid, but when you're in it, your brain does this thing where you're trying to avoid making the wrong move with the wrong person. So we didn't yell. We just waited. After a minute, the footsteps backed away, slowly, like he wasn't in a hurry. I kept listening, trying to hear if he went to another door, but the wind was too loud and my ears were ringing. Cody and I didn't sleep after that. We sat there with the lights off, on the bed, shoes on, coats on, like if we relaxed, we'd die. Milo stayed between us, shaking. At one point, Cody whispered, "That wasn't normal." And I whispered back, "I know." Around 6:30 a.m., it got a little lighter outside. Still gray and ugly, but lighter. The storm wasn't gone, but it wasn't full whiteout anymore. You could at least see the parking lot. We didn't even talk about it. We just moved. I put Milo on his leash with my hands still shaking. Cody grabbed his bag. I moved the chair away from the door as quietly as I could. I cracked the door open and looked left and right like I was in some action movie, which is embarrassing to admit, but I didn't care. Nobody was out there. We walked fast to the Corolla. The snow had piled up around it like a little wall. Cody helped me kick it away from the tires, and I kept looking back toward the office. The office lights were on. I saw the clerk through the glass, standing by the counter, facing the window, like he was watching for us. I froze for half a second, and Cody hissed, "Get in." We got in the car, locked the doors immediately, and I started it. It took a second to turn over, and I swear my heart stopped during that second. When it finally started, I backed out way too fast and slid a little, but I didn't care. I just wanted out of that lot. We drove to the next town, which was like 25 minutes away, and it felt like the longest drive of my life. The whole time I expected to see headlights behind us. We went to a McDonald's that was open and sat there with those stupid brown hash browns and bad coffee, just trying to calm down like normal people. In the bright lights of a fast food place, it almost felt fake, like maybe we overreacted. But then I'd remember that voice saying, "Don't make it a thing," and my stomach would twist again. Cody said we should call someone. I was like, who? The cops? So we tried. We called the non-emergency number once we had signal again. I told the lady on the phone, we stayed at a motel off the highway during the storm, and the clerk knocked on our door at like 2 a.m. and tried the knob. She asked if he got in or if he threatened us. I said no, but he had our names written down before we even checked in. There was a pause, like she didn't know what to do with that part. She basically told us if no one was hurt and nothing was stolen, there wasn't much they could do, but she could send a patrol by the motel when roads were clear. And that was it. And I get it, I do. If I was her, I'd probably think we were being dramatic too. We didn't go back. We didn't stop to take pictures. We didn't confront him. People always say they would, but when it's you, you just want distance. I went to work later that day, on like 2 hours of sleep, and my boss was mad at me for being late anyway. I didn't even argue. I just stood there, thinking about a logbook on a counter. Nothing happened in the way people want when you tell a story like this. There was no chase scene, no headline, no big reveal. We just left. And I still think about that guest log sometimes, like a splinter in my brain. The way our names were already written down under tomorrow, like it was normal, like it was scheduled. I keep wondering how he knew, if he was watching the highway and guessing, or if he'd done it to other people and we were just lucky enough to leave. And I keep thinking about what would have happened if that deadbolt was broken, or if we'd opened the door because he said front desk, like you're supposed to. Because the creepiest part wasn't even the knocking. It was how calm he sounded the whole time, like none of it was new to him, like he'd already written it down. This happened a few years ago, like February 1st, and I was working nights for the county because I needed the overtime. That's literally the whole reason. My girlfriend at the time had just lost her job and my truck needed new tires, and I was like, all right, I can be miserable for a few extra bucks. So yeah, I was a snowplow driver, not the cool kind, just county roads, salt, boring radio chatter, and you smell like diesel no matter how many showers you take. That night, I was in an older International Workstar, the one with the door seal that whistles when the wind hits it just right. If you've driven one, you know what I mean. I had my Carhartt bibs on, a hoodie underneath, those cheap yellow work gloves from Walmart, and a metal thermos of gas station coffee that tasted burnt even when it was hot. They had the highway closed because the storm was supposed to get worse, but closed doesn't mean we get to stay home. It means we keep it passable for ambulances, troopers, tow trucks, stuff like that. So we still ran it, just no regular traffic. I clocked in around 10:40 p.m., did the normal checks, salt level, windshield fluid, made sure the blade wasn't hanging weird. The heater was blasting, but my hands still felt cold, like the cold was coming from the steering wheel itself. Dispatch that night was Mel. She'd been there forever. She had that tired mom voice, like she'd heard every excuse and every problem already. My coworker Ryan was running the next section over, basically the stretch north of me. We'd text when we had service, mostly just complaining and sending dumb memes. At like 1:50 a.m., I was somewhere around mile marker 16 heading toward 18. The radio was patchy in that area, and cell service would drop in and out. I had the local classic rock station on low, just to keep my brain from turning to mush. Snow was coming down hard enough that my headlights were basically just lighting up a wall of white. You can't see far. You kind of just trust the lines in your muscle memory. Everything was normal until I started seeing footprints. At first, I didn't even process it because your brain doesn't expect that. You expect tire tracks, maybe some junk blown in, maybe a deer. But these were footprints, like a single line of them, in the lane.
And what got me was they were crisp, not filled in, not drifted over, fresh, like somebody had walked there minutes ago. I slowed down a little, and I remember thinking, okay, maybe it's a trooper checking the gate. There's a road-closed barricade back at the exit, and sometimes they'll go out, make sure nobody moved it, make sure no one's stuck. Or maybe it was some stranded driver who ditched their car and walked to the rest area. People do stupid stuff in storms. And honestly, I didn't call it in right away because I didn't want to sound paranoid on the radio. Plus, my supervisor had literally snapped at us the week before about wasting radio time with stuff that turned out to be nothing. Like he made it a whole thing. So I'm looking at footprints in the snow, and I'm thinking, it's probably explainable. It has to be. But then, it didn't add up. Because the footprints weren't going toward the shoulder. They weren't going toward the tree line. They weren't heading toward the dead exit ramp or the rest area. They were just in the middle of the highway. Like the person wasn't trying to get out of the road. And I know that sounds like a small detail, but it made my stomach feel weird. Like that gut feeling you get when you're walking to your car at night and you hear someone behind you, even if it's probably nothing. A little farther up, I saw another set, or maybe it was the same set continuing, but it looked like it stopped for a bit and then started again, like someone stood there, right in the lane. I remember saying out loud to myself, "What are you doing, dude?" Like I was talking to the footprints. That's how my brain tried to make it normal. I kept going because, again, I'm in a huge plow truck. It's loud, it's heavy, I'm up high. You feel safe in it. And the job is the job. The whole point is to keep moving. Around 2:20 a.m., I got to this maintenance turnaround area. It's basically just a wide spot where you can flip around if you need to. There's also a sign there, and on that sign there's always junk stuck to it, like old zip ties and reflective tape flapping in the wind. As I came up on it, I felt the blade hit something. Not like a rock, more like, you know when you hit a chunk of packed snow or ice? That kind of thud. The truck jolted just a little, so I stopped. I know, that's the part everyone's gonna say was dumb. Why would you stop on a closed highway in the middle of a storm? But when your blade catches something, you're supposed to check it. If you bend it or rip a hose, you're done, and then you're stuck waiting for a wrecker anyway. And county equipment is not the kind of stuff you want to mess up. They act like you personally took money out of their pockets. So I pulled over as much as I could and put it in park. The snow was still coming down, and the only light was my headlights and the orange hazard lights reflecting off the snow. I opened my door and climbed down. The cold hit me so hard it felt like it slapped my face, like instant regret. And right away, I saw fresh footprints around my truck. Not just leading by it, around it. I froze on the bottom step. My hands went numb, and it wasn't from the cold. It was like my brain lagged for a second, trying to decide if I was seeing it right. Because I hadn't walked around the truck. I had just stopped, and I climbed straight down. My own boot prints were right there, and I could tell the tread pattern. My boots had a kind of blocky tread. These prints were different, more narrow, more like a work boot or a hiking boot, and there were a bunch of them, like someone paced. It looked like they had walked up to the passenger side, then to the front, then around the back. And the worst part was, the passenger door handle had snow brushed off it. Not like the wind did it, like a hand did it. My mouth went dry. I kept swallowing, and it felt like I couldn't get enough spit in my throat. I remember thinking, how long have I been sitting in that cab with someone outside? How did I not see them? How did I not hear anything over the engine and the wind? I stepped down into the snow, and I tried to act calm, like if I acted normal, it would make it normal. I walked toward the blade like I was just doing my job, but my eyes were scanning everywhere. The snow was coming down so hard that anything more than like 30 feet away was just gray shapes. The tree line was there, but it wasn't clear. It was like the storm was hiding everything. I looked at the blade, and I didn't even really check it. I just wanted an excuse to be outside for 2 seconds and then get back in without it looking like I was panicking. Then I noticed my passenger side mirror. It was slightly moved, not a lot,
just wrong, like someone had bumped it. I'm the only one who drives that truck on my shift, and I don't mess with the passenger mirror. There's no reason. I got this hot flush of panic, even though the air was freezing. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. That's when I heard crunching. Not my crunching, not the wind, like a boot stepping on snow. One step, then nothing. I stopped moving completely and held my breath, like that would help. And the sound stopped too. I swear to you, it was like whatever it was, whoever it was matching me. Like they knew if I moved, they could move, and if I stopped, they could stop. I backed up toward my door without turning my back to the tree line, and I know that sounds dramatic, but I had this really clear thought in my head that if I turned around, I was going to see someone right there. I climbed back up into the cab and shut the door, and I locked it without even thinking, like pure instinct. My fingers were clumsy, and I dropped my glove for a second, and my hands were shaking. I grabbed the radio mic and tried to sound normal. "Mel, you copy?" It crackled, that half-working, static sound. "Go ahead," she said. I paused because I didn't know how to say it without sounding insane. "I'm at around mile marker 18 near the turnaround. You got anybody else on this stretch?" There was a pause, and then, "Negative. Ryan's north. You're the only unit on that section." My stomach dropped even more. I didn't want to say, "I think someone's out here," because I didn't want it to turn into a whole report where my boss is mad and everyone's joking about it for weeks. So I said, "I'm seeing footprints in the lane, like fresh ones, and they're around my truck." Another pause. The radio hissed. Mel's voice got a little more serious. "Are you safe?" And I almost lied and said yes. That's how messed up my brain was. Like I didn't want to cause trouble. But I said, "I don't know. I didn't see anyone. It's weird." She said, "If you feel uncomfortable, do not stop again. Keep moving. I can notify troopers." I asked, "How long would they take?" And she didn't answer right away, which was basically the answer. I grabbed my phone and tried calling Ryan because sometimes calls will go through even when texts don't. It rang twice and then went to nothing. No voicemail, just dead. I looked at my screen and it said, "No service." Of course. I sat there for like 3 seconds, just staring at that, and then I realized how stupid it was to be sitting still. I put the truck in drive, and right as I started to move, my headlights caught something on the right side, near the snowbank. At first, I thought it was a reflective marker post, but it wasn't that. It was a person shape, just for a second, like a silhouette standing there, half-turned toward me. And I know how that sounds. I know people will say, "Oh, you just saw a shadow," but it was too clean, too human, like shoulders and a head. The second my brain registered it, it stepped back behind the snowbank or the trees or whatever was there, like it didn't want to be seen. My whole body went cold, like colder than before. And that's when I heard it, even through the truck cab. A voice, muffled but close enough that I could make it out. "Hey, can you roll your window down for a second?" I don't know if I've ever felt fear like that, because it was such a normal thing to say, like something you'd hear at a gas station, not out here, not on a closed highway at 2:30 in the morning in a storm. My brain did this fast math where it was like, if I roll it down, they can reach in. If I stop, they can get on the step. If I keep going, maybe they throw something, maybe they chase, but at least I'm moving. So I did the only thing that made sense. I didn't answer, I didn't roll anything down, I just drove. And I didn't drive normal either. I basically gunned it as much as you can gun it in a snowplow with the blade down. The truck lurched and the tires kind of slid for a second, and I remember thinking, if I end up in the ditch because I panicked, I'm going to be even more screwed. As I rolled forward, my headlights swept across the spot again. Nothing, just blowing snow. But then I saw new footprints, like appearing from behind the snowbank area, cutting toward the lane. Not in front of me, thank God, but like the person had started walking again parallel with the road. That's when it hit me that they weren't stranded. They weren't trying to get to safety. They were waiting for someone to stop. And I had stopped. I kept going toward the rest area because it's the nearest spot with lights. It's not like a full truck stop or anything, but there are usually those tall pole lights and sometimes a vending machine building. I figured even if it was empty, at least I'd have light, and if someone tried to come up to the truck, I'd see them.
The whole drive there, I kept checking my mirrors like an idiot. And I know, it's not like someone's car could sneak up behind a plow on a closed highway, but I couldn't help it. I kept thinking I'd see headlights, or I'd see a person in the road. I also kept thinking about the footprints around my truck, like they had time. They had time to walk around it, mess with the mirror, touch the passenger door. I didn't hear a single thing. When I got close to the rest area exit, the road dipped and my radio started working a little better. I called Mel again. "I'm heading to the rest area. I saw someone, I think." "What do you mean you think?" she asked, but not in a rude way, more like she needed something solid to tell troopers. "I saw a shape by the snowbank and I heard a voice. They asked me to roll my window down." That got quiet on the other end. Then she said, "Okay, stay in your vehicle. I'm notifying State Patrol. Ryan, copy. Are you monitoring?" And for the first time all night, Ryan came through, crackly but there. "Yeah, I'm here. What's going on?" I don't know why, but hearing his voice almost made me feel like I could breathe again. I said, "Don't laugh, but are you anywhere near mile marker 18? Ryan goes, "No, I'm up by 24. Why?" I told him the quick version. Footprints, door handle, voice. He didn't laugh. He just went quiet for a second and then said, "Dude, don't stop. Just get to the yard or the rest area and wait. I can turn around if you need me to." Mel said troopers were en route, which can mean 10 minutes or an hour, depending on the night. I pulled into the rest area and parked under the brightest light I could find, right by the building. I kept the truck running. I kept the doors locked. I sat there with my hands on the wheel like I was waiting for a crash. And you know what's messed up? For a couple minutes, nothing happened. Just snow, wind, the engine rumbling. It almost made me doubt myself, like maybe I was overreacting. Then I noticed something else. On the passenger side, on the step, there was a smear where snow had been wiped away, like someone had put their hand there. Not a lot, just enough to see the black metal. That's when I got that wave of nausea, like my body was finally catching up to what my brain already knew. Someone had been right there, close enough to touch the truck while I was inside. A trooper eventually showed up, but it took a while. By then, any footprints near mile marker 18 were getting covered over. He asked me all the normal questions. Did I see a face? Did I see a vehicle? Did I smell alcohol? Did I hear anything else? I had nothing good to give him, just a silhouette and a voice. He drove up that stretch with his lights on for a bit and came back and said he didn't see anyone. He wasn't rude about it, but you could tell he wasn't excited to go hunting through a storm for a guy I couldn't describe. Ryan offered to swing down and follow me for the rest of my route, but dispatch ended up pulling me off that section. Mel was the one who made it happen, I think. She framed it like equipment issue, so it wouldn't become a whole thing with the supervisor. I finished the night doing easier roads closer to town, where there were at least houses, gas stations, and actual cell service. The next day, when it was light out, I drove my personal truck past that highway entrance out of curiosity. The gate was still there, road closed, everything normal. Fresh snow, no footprints, no sign of anything. Just like it never happened. But I know what I saw around my truck. I know my boot tread. I know that passenger door handle had been touched, and I know I heard someone, clear as day, asking me to roll my window down like we were in a parking lot. I still don't know if they were trying to steal the plow, mess with me, or just see if someone would stop and help them.
I only know they were close enough to touch my door, and I didn't hear a thing.
Out of everything we heard tonight, which story actually unsettled you the most? The first one really got under my skin, but I want to know which one did it for you. Vote for the scariest story in the comments below.